I'm clinically an asshole. Nothing I can do. Yes, you are on the spectrum, but so is everyone else alive. That's why they call it a spectrum. And it's not noble to glom onto the soft end of it. PTSD is for people who fought in Iraq, not for people who want to bring their dog on a plane. There are people in America with real problems who deserve to feel sad, but sometimes a bad day is just a bad day. When you constantly reinforce this message that no one's just a normal human with normal struggles, but we're all permanently fucked in the head, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe the solution is much simpler, and you just went a week without sleep or sunlight. Maybe you have problems that could be solved with vegetables.
Good morning. It's Friday, Policecraft Friday, May the 17th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and policecraft. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now, the headlines.
Mitch Rochelle, come back soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you tonight on Marie Bartram's Wall Street at 7 here on Fox Business. Varney and Company's up next. Stu, take it away.
Here I am. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. It was brief. The Dow touched 40,000, held it for an hour, then backed off and closed lower. That's a timeline of the Dow hitting 40,000. There it goes. That happened yesterday. It eventually closed lower. Was that the top? The good question. Was 40K the top? Will it make another run to 40K? We're going to find out soon. The Dow shows a small gain this morning. Now, that chart makes it look like it's 40,000. It is, because that is a futures contract, okay? Futures actually pointing up 20 points. Same story with the S&P, up slightly. NASDAQ up 32 points. So some green in the very early going on a Friday morning. Interest rates, shall we say, subdued. The 10-year yields 4.40. Actually, that yield has gone up just a little bit. The 2-year dropped firmly below 4.8%. Now it's bounced back up to 481. Got it. Bitcoin holding its gains, I think. Let me see. 66,385. That's right. The price of oil very close to $80 a barrel, 79.76. Gas down 1 cent, 3.59. Diesel down 1 cent, 3.92. Politics. Biden speaks at Morehouse College's commencement ceremony Sunday. The authorities say they'll stop it, quote, on the spot if there are any disruptions. Morehouse is an historically black college. This is part of Biden's outreach to black voters. And what is widely considered to be outreach to young voters, the president will try to ease rules on marijuana. On the show today, 2 Jordanian nationals in custody. They are both illegal migrants. 2 weeks ago, they tried to get into the Quantico Marine Corps base. Does this have anything to do with illegal border crossers? It's a political nightmare for the open border president. New Fox polls. What's the deal-breaking issue for Democrats? Abortion. For Republicans, the border and the economy. A major storm shuts down Houston. The governor tells 750,000 residents, hey, stay home for the day. And one last one. The world's #1 golfer, Scottie Scheffler, put in handcuffs after an altercation with police officers, a police officer. It happened this morning right outside the Valhalla course. It delayed the start of the second round of the PGA Championship. There is a lot going on this Friday, May 17th, 2024. Varney and Company is about to begin.
And there you go, straight from the mouth of the bloody tourist himself. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a few minutes of combat radio.
We're gonna be down here. We're not gonna hide weapons. Pop your smoke. Don't hear the second switch coming down. And if nobody can do it, these guys can do it. So just relax. It'll be cool. Okay. No, I'm all right. Now I was just yelling because I couldn't. There's too much ordnance going on. You were taking the first shot was taking heavy ground fire. And there's 6 more people on the ground. The next stop is take 6. Over. Right there. That big field. Okay. I'm not sure. He's gonna try. So he's getting ourselves down right now, and I'm getting ready to open up on the area again. So just keep your head down. Okay, I'm gonna pop a word. That's the only smoke we got left. Let's try to get 6. Okay, we'll thanks much. Okay, it's a keep. One block will hit the Delta Tango. Roger. Why don't you stay out here? I'll just break a valve on myself. My fortune is stay again for the 2. Roger, I think we can get the secondary back up. I think it's go shut out. Go ahead. Okay, Roger that. Go ahead. Just go and feel out. We'll work the lights until we get there. Okay, real fine. We're going to have to all refuel for this next he's down on the ground now, and they got ready. They want to just take it back and knock you down. Right, fine. 512 is 597 uniform. How about 131-0 on picture? Too far. 131-0, ready here. This is Delta Papa. I am literally to your location. I will be there very soon. Okay, 1-3, come on down and join us. Hi. You're the guy. He was around already.
And that was a little bit of the Vietnam War radio chatter. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the patriotic shorts.
We had a number of scenes with airplanes at 500 or 600 miles an hour at really low altitude, just scraping over that building. And it didn't have the desired effect. But if you did it at 20 feet and then climbed right as you got overhead, the way it directs the nozzles and the jet exhaust to the ground had quite a devastating impact on the set. And so that's what we ultimately went with. Like you saw in the movie, it literally ripped the roof off the building, and it would have separated by a long distance. There was some conduit that ran through it, and the building had some stuntmen in there for, visual effect. And the director of that movie thought he had, almost killed the entire crew because of what it did. After I landed 20 minutes later, they were all still coming off this, emotional high from what had happened.
Mach 10. Let's give Mach 10.
I landed with the 2nd Armored Division on Omaha Beach and with my team, made our way up to the bluff, which was quite difficult, and spent the night up there and was shot at by a German plane. I already felt the bullets going through my back. I couldn't pray, but I made myself a promise. I said, if I survive, I'll never complain. And if I survive, I will always try to give pleasure to others and to myself. It was a promise. And this promise became a metaphor. It was the promise for the future. I don't know whether I've always kept it, but it was there as something that sustained me.
Going to let me answer the question, or are you just going to heckle on behalf of Justin Trudeau? Which is it?
I would love the answer.
Great. So our party does not support tax dollars for media outlets, because that's when we end up with biased media like you, who come here and articulate the PMO talking points rather than delivering real news to the Canadian people. Justin Trudeau gave Bell Media and other media tax dollars supposedly to protect media jobs. And then what happened? They all got laid off. So that the supposed justification for giving Bell all this money was that it was going to save media jobs. Well, they all got fired. So I guess that wasn't the real reason for giving tax dollars to the media. The real reason was for him to buy support from the media, which is what it actually did. So we believe that media should be driven by readership, viewership, and listenership.
I didn't have any idea how I was going to get that kid out. In the meantime, I'm praying like crazy, asking the good Lord to show me how to do it. The crew is nervous. They're screaming at me on the ground. So we went back around, back up the mountain, into the soup, and I was blown sidewards. That was the breath of God. And I looked out my window. I was looking for a hole in the jungle. I thought we were going to crash. And I could see the tip of the rotor blade, and I could see the top of the trees. So guess what? I knew I was right side up. So I turned that thing sideways, up the mountain, into the area, got the kid, got him to the hospital, and I think he lived. That was the technique. From that moment on, low valley fog, afternoon buildup, 2 reference points, sidewards, and you can get in. They can't stop us. And so the day of the Medal of Honor action, they called me because it was one of those missions, and they knew I could fly it.
The last room I wanted to show you was all the way here in the back. And it actually required another combination to get into. You had to have top secret clearance to get into this room. Now, it sounds exciting. The information that's being printed on these teletype machines is classified top secret. It's a warship. If the ship got hit, it's being sunk. You're in enemy territory. You would take the most important security things, put them in the bags, which are weighted very heavy at the bottom with a steel plate, and then you head outside and toss it over into the ocean, and it'll sink, and hopefully the other guys don't get it then.
And that was the Patriotic Shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of motivation.
I don't care how good you are. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how much you work on yourself. There are some times when things aren't going to go right. There are times when anything that can happen will happen.
Life happens. The unexpected, the uncalled for, the unintentional. We've been damaged emotionally, damaged spiritually.
It may be your business. It may be your heart that is broken today. It may be the number in your bank account that is screaming, you are broke.
You can break physically, you can break mentally, you can break your heart, you can break your spirit, and all of those are going to leave a mark. But the mark that they leave can be the mark of victory, or it can be the mark of defeat.
It is staying with the breaking that produces the blessing. It is not what you go through that determines where you end up. It's who you listen to. Because I think right now, you are walking through a valley between two voices. One is wisdom, one is worry. One is gratitude, one is grumbling. One is blame, one is faith.
Because every time you break, and in every way that you break, wow, it's a chance for you to give up and for you to fall apart. But there's also opportunity to get stronger, and get smarter, and get faster, and get tougher, and get more stable, and get more resilient, and get better.
What I need you to do is I need you to find a reason to keep going. And if you can find a reason to keep going, I know you're strong enough to do it because you're human. And every human has what it takes to get past whatever they're going through if they decide to. Push through it. Push through it. Tragedy and trials come to everybody. Only the strong survive.
The fight isn't over. The fight is just beginning. You have the opportunity to show the world what you are really made of.
I need you to look at that sickness that's going on in your life right now, whatever it is. I want you to say, I can beat it. I can beat it. I will beat it. I must. I got a family to live for. I ain't through yet. My life ain't over yet. There's some things in life you don't need no degree for. You don't need no money for it. You don't need no support for it. There's some things in life you just gonna get through when you tell yourself, I'm gonna get through this. Regardless of what happens to you in life, regardless of the adversity, regardless of the opposition, regardless of the trial and tribulation, nothing can stop you. The only thing that can stop you is you. No situation, no circumstance, no piece of adversity can define your life. Never let a circumstance define you. And I'm not retreating. I'm not running. I don't care what they say on paper. I don't care if you say we outnumbered. We live by this and we die by this. We don't retreat. We don't run. We gonna stand, we gonna live, we gonna die by what we stand for, and everybody gonna know what we represent and what we're part of. I got staying power. I got staying power.
Be encouraged today that no matter what you walk through, no matter how broken your marriage is, no matter how many times you fail,
there is within you a spirit that is greater than whatever is going on around you.
If you would be willing to fight your way through this battle, fight your way through cancer, fight your way through that academic struggle, fight your way through divorce, fight your way through it. If you are willing to fight your way through that stinging career, fight your way through boxing, fight your way through football, I'm telling you at the end of the fight is going to come victory.
And as you crawl up and out of that dismal and wretched place, as you rise above what you were, and as you take the form of who you are supposed to be, you will see that in the very act of standing up, in the very act of fighting on, you will become and you will remain unbroken.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Daily Dad for May 17th.
May 17th. Teach them to give it their all. Rudyard Kipling's beautiful poem, If, which was written as advice for Kipling's son, is about toughness and virtue, honor and duty. There's one line that doesn't get as much attention. Maybe that's because it's a bit confusing. It reads, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. Kipling is talking about the importance of giving your all to something, physical and otherwise. There's an expression in sports about playing through the whistle. In boxing and martial arts, you punch through the opponent until you hear the bell. In baseball, you swing through the ball. In running, they talk about running through the finish line. It's about completing the action, giving 100%, playing the right way. And this is an important lesson to teach our kids. We don't stop at the finish line. We give our all to something. We concentrate on a single task till it's done or until the clock runs out. We fill that unforgiving minute. It's the proper way to play and to live.
And that was the Daily Dad by Ryan Holiday for May 17th. Teach them to give it their all. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
I don't think we talk enough about the Holy Spirit, even though, of course, we mention and we honor and we worship the Holy Spirit, that we don't speak sufficiently of this third person of the Trinity. And there might be some truth to that. See, when you get in touch with the Holy Spirit, you're getting in touch with the love that connects the Father and the Son. You're getting in touch with the love that God is, and therefore with the very force that gave rise to the universe. So at the risk of sounding a little bit cosmic and grandiose, you're in touch with the most powerful force imaginable. You want power. I mean the real thing. Surrender your life over to the Holy Spirit. Say, Lord, look, it's not what I want. It's not my projects and plans. It's your projects and plans. You will find you will tap into this source of power to change things for good, change things for the better in your life, in your family, in your place of work. Surrender by a conscious act to the Spirit, and you unleash this great driving.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Ayn Rand Thought of the Day.
It is an enormous achievement to discover rational selfishness, not acting on whim or pleasure of the moment, but knowing what is rationally an important goal, of what value is it to you, and how to achieve it. The idea of being rationally selfish is not available to children. It would take a long period of thought to children. It would take a long period of thought or the proper teaching for them to discover it.
And that was the Ayn Rand Thought of the Day. Back in a minute. Thank you. So if you're a Democrat, you should be voting Republican and become a Republican because the pressure's off. On the Democrat side of the ticket, the Democrats are under constant pressure to produce paradise and to produce it yesterday. The Democrat Party is about 50 years behind schedule. They should have created paradise about 50 years ago, but they failed to do so. So the pressure is on, the pressure is on. Got to get the movement, got to get perfect. And from the time you get up in the morning until the time you go to bed at night, you're under the gun. Your fellow Democrats are looking at you, wondering why it is that you're going to Starbucks instead of doing something to create socialist paradise. But in the Republican Party, no such thing, because we're realistic. We know there's never been a paradise, there isn't now, and therefore there's not going to be any type of paradise other than the second coming of Jesus Christ. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the 36 Strategies of War.
By Balthazar Gracian. Enter into action under the cover of helping another's interests, only to further your own in the end. This is the perfect stratagem and disguise for realizing your ambitions, for the advantages you seem to offer only serve as lures to influence the other person's will. They think their interests are being advanced, when in truth, they are opening the way for yours.
And that was the 33 Strategies of War, by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the next chapter in Policecraft.
19. Oh, geez. When Wilson and I were chasing that kid, do you know what it feels like to be running down 43rd Street and your partner is cornering a guy on 52nd? Do you know how I found out what happened? I asked a reporter. 4 radio stations beat me to the scene of the crime. Abe Vigoda as Detective Phil Fish, Barney Miller. You've been on the job for a time. You don't know it all, but you know just enough to be wrong less often. One day, you look in the mirror and wonder why you appear so cranky. What's there to frown about? You have stable employment. The game is on. Your wife just made you a bacon omelet. Then you realize that's no mere frown. That's a permanent forehead crease. And you look further and you see flecks of white on your chin. Truth be told, you initially think they're pleasant reminders of that powdered donut you just wolfed down. But they don't seem to go anywhere when you try to rub them off. Hang on, that's not powdered sugar. Those are white hairs. Then you think on it some more. No one would describe you as dynamic. You need a brace on each knee just to use the elliptical at the gym. You've lost a belt loop of late. Used to be you could cinch it 4 notches, and now it's down to 3. At work, you still say the proper things to members of the community, but you say them more tonelessly now, like how a tired waitress sounds when she tells you, "That'll be right up." Your station just hoisted a giant banner above the exit door that says, "Remember, you are SFPD's finest," and when you see it, you kind of want to give it the finger. Some days, you wonder what's going on in the command van and how nice it would be to sit in there and take your shoes off. You've found yourself incessantly grumbling about your department, noting, for instance, that you all recently received new uniform patches, fancy dark blue ones with the embroidered city seal. The same emblem is now emblazoned on all the police cars, which caused hundreds of them to have to be repainted. New patches and emblems. Hooray! That will really put a dent in the crime rate. Thank goodness all of that money wasn't foolishly squandered on technology or infrastructure or elevators that don't break every other week. All of this means you're getting old. Not old, but cop old. You are becoming someone, and that someone is known in police circles as the OG. Old guy. The OG, loosely defined as a cop with more than 20 years on, is the backbone of the police department, and at times, the bane. OGs are aging, sure, but they aren't washed up yet. They can do everything the job requires, just more slowly, and with joint pain. OGs wear an unhurried air. They still think it's fun to outfox the bad guys, although not as fun as it used to be. OGs lament how times have changed. Used to be that if they screwed up, a supervisor would call them into the office and tell them to straighten their shit out. Now, every complaint is put on paper. Probably a van parked by their house filled with internal affairs, watching them with a damn periscope. The OG will pass on to other officers what their mentors passed on to them. Much of what they have to say is clear, wise, and vulgar. Kid, stay clear of the money and screw it home. OGs will describe the ghetto retirement plan to anyone who will listen. Step 1, is to do a crappy job parenting and raise a criminal moron. Step 2 is to wait for him to be killed by the police. Step 3 is to sue the city for millions and hope for a settlement. That's the plan in a nutshell, with the overriding theme being that no one gave this man a second thought until he died. OGs were on the job at a time when they carried revolvers, the old wheel gun. Tennis shoes were forbidden, and the standard issue pants were wool with white stripes down the side, the stripes preventing cops from wearing them to church. In the summer, officers were required to wear blazers similar to suit jackets, which looked better than the regular garb, but were roasting in the heat. OGs remember when there was a height requirement on police departments. For SFPD, in 1966, it was 5'8". A police commander told me that one fellow who applied that year was only 5'7", but he really wanted to be a cop, so when he was in the doctor's office just prior to being measured, he got hold of a 2x4 and whacked himself in the head. When his height was officially taken, the knot on his skull put him at 5'9". He got the job. The OG knows to check under parked vehicles for discarded handguns at shooting scenes. When his winter turtleneck gets worn at the edges, he doesn't buy a new one, he just uses a black permanent marker to fill in the gaps. He has mastered the, as long as they keep paying me every other Tuesday, head shake. Has struggled mightily with the transition from handwritten reports to typed because the only people he knew who typed were secretaries. Old-timers like to grumble but don't have much patience for other grumblers because no one forced you to join the department. How did you think it would be like? What did you think you would see? CompStat, short for Computer Statistics, is a data-driven police system thought up by NYPD cop Jack Maple that targets chronic offenders and floods crime-ridden areas with the most resources. But OGs don't need any fancy crime-mapping software to pinpoint hotspots. Ask an old-timer where the crime is, and he'll point north, then east and west. So to the south, is that okay then? Nope, it's bad down there too. OGs have arch-enemies who fall in the following order. 1. The career criminal. 2. The unreasonable citizen who knows nothing about the job but sees fit to tell you how to do it. The proper response for these people? Work the streets just for a week and come back and see me. Until then, shut your pie hole. 3. Supervisors. OGs feel they've been wronged by so many bosses, passed up for promotions, unfairly disciplined, transferred out of a coveted specialty unit because they had the audacity to arrest the assistant chief's crackhead brother, that they'll say the greatest threat to a working cop is from the inside, not the outside. And they'll believe it with all their heart. In fact, as far as the OG is concerned, the entire police command staff should be fired and replaced by pill bugs. The bugs would just crawl around in the dirt and curl up into a ball when approached, which would be far more productive than what these idiots are doing. 4. Rookie cops. They don't know jack shit. Bunch of college kids with their sensitivity training, more social workers than anything, want to connect with the community as they learned in the academy. Hey, look at this community. There's Ray sleeping in his van. He always has lice and likes to carry a straight razor in his shoe. Just got paroled for lighting his girlfriend on fire. And Martha, the toothless hooker whose children were taken away from her because she tried to sell them for cocaine. There's your community, kid. Go bring them hope or some shit. The OG ranks are populated by tough guys who have uncompromising rules about calling in sick, because when you take an unscheduled day off, it leaves your fellow officers short on manpower and backup. My FTO, Gilbert Gwynn, cut his hand open with a saw while off duty. He swathed it up and came in the next day, adding that he enjoyed a certain level of pain. It says God is paying attention to me and knows who I am, Gil mused. Rolf Mueller worked his last 23 years of street patrol without calling in sick. Take that, Cal Ripken, Jr. OGs scoff at the new breed of officer who not only has the temerity to take a sick day, but then tries to inform the shift supervisor of their absence via text instead of a phone call. The OG will imitate the rookie softy by mock whining, "I can't make it in, Lieutenant. I got a doctor's appointment. There's a rock in my shoe. The sun's in my eyes." Just as deplorable to the OG is the cop who calls in sick every time his partner calls in sick because neither feels like working with anyone else on the shift. Words like dependability and trust still mean something to the OG, who knows that these kinds of sicky-sick duos are cementing a certain reputation. Their fellow officers won't remember the great felony arrest they made, but will remember that they couldn't be counted on, that they didn't show when it mattered. My wife and I dated long distance for several years while I was in Milwaukee and she was in San Francisco. One weekend, she flew in for a surprise visit. I was delighted to see her, but I had to work Saturday. She told me to call in sick. "I can't," I said, channeling the OG. "I'm not sick." This did not go over well. So what do OGs want from their supervisors? To have their backs and maybe go light on the speeches. Competence is a nice bonus, but is in no way required. The old guard really wants supervisors to do 3 things. 1, stay out of their way. 2, give them the off days they want. 3, sign their overtime cards. If an OG is close enough to retirement that he can leave whenever he'd like, he'll acquire a KMA pin for his uniform. KMA stands for Kiss My Ass. Way it works is, if an OG is given an order he doesn't care for, he'll say he won't do it, and if he is told he'll be written up for insubordination, he'll say, "Go right ahead. Look at the pin. He's on his way out, there's gonna be a vacancy, and the bosses should just go ahead and post the sign that says, 'Help wanted, inquire within.' KMA, suckers." OGs have the best go-to lines at work. One of their favorites, said with cheerful cynicism, is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." I once heard an old head proclaim, "In the 70s, we were allowed to do terrible things. Ask an OG, 'How are you?' and some will reply, 'Fat and white.'" Rolf Mueller liked to say, "It's a dirty job, and you win some and you lose some, and the wins never quite add up to the losses, but that's all you got." I'm not sure if he picked that up from a movie or a book, or if it was born in some organic pool of toughness, but I haven't forgotten it. OGs also have all the best hypotheticals. If you're in the station parking lot and back into your personal car with your patrol vehicle while on the clock, does the department have to pay for it? If you total your car, will the department have to buy you a new one? OGs watch rookies with a mix of amusement and thinly disguised contempt. After a heart-pounding foot pursuit or car chase that ends in an arrest, they'll hear some giddy new cop exclaimed, "I do this job for free." The OG had that kind of enthusiasm once, a decade and a half ago. Give it time, Rook. Soon you'll be disaffected, just like the rest of us, absorbed into the collective. An OG will come across a parked patrol car with 2 young cops in it, both of their heads buried in their phone, texting or playing games. "If I'd been a bad guy, I could have capped them both," the OG will announce back at the station. Look up, youngsters. There's a big world out there, outside of Candy Crush. What's even worse, to the OG, is the new cop's tendency to ask a street sergeant about every single thing. Used to be calling a boss for advice or to come to your scene was considered a sign of weakness. Now guys with 4, 5, 6 years on are still calling to run something by a supervisor. The OG's position is this: you get paid a decent amount of money as a patrol cop to make your own decisions, so make one. But while the rookie freeze-out is commonplace, a notable exception is made for soldiers. Veteran cops have great respect for those who have served our country in the armed forces. Soldiers, especially those who have seen combat, know more about brotherhood, danger, and loss than many cops ever will. As a new recruit, you are often assigned an OG as a field training officer. This could be a mixed bag. When you check in with the desk sergeant, he might gesture to a sour-looking old-timer in back, chewing on a toothpick with a yellowish cast to his face from 30 years of smoking cigarettes, sigh, and say, "Okay, kid, you got Screwy Louie." The Louies of the department are FTOs solely for the modest spike in pay and will make their recruits write parking tickets in a downpour because it's both funny and pointless. But most OGs train out of a sense of duty. They'll be tough on their charges because 25 years ago, their FTO, who was light infantry in the Korean War, was tough on them. The OG's FTO had them halfway convinced that they policed at a time when there were no cars or handcuffs, so if you made an arrest and couldn't find a wheelbarrow, you'd have to beat your prisoner into submission, throw him over your shoulder, and carry him to the precinct like a sack of wheat. OGs will make it a point to respond to all the worst calls, even if it's far from their car sector. They'll yell to inoculate recruits against stress, or just because they're annoyed. One of my co-workers lost 20 pounds on field training under the supervision of a righteous OG who refused to stop for meals and rode him every step of the way. When I was a new recruit in Milwaukee, a prisoner slipped his handcuffs, jumped out of my patrol car, and disappeared into the woods. He completely outclassed me, and the day was his. The next morning, I had in-service training. 2 OGs behind me were talking about the incident in disgust. "That had to be a fucking rookie," one of them said. The fucking rookie looked at his shoes and said nothing. I was subsequently suspended from the police department for 4 days on a negligence charge. I didn't bother appealing the decision. I had seemed pretty negligent to me, too. I ended up taking the red-eye to Vegas for a long weekend. It seemed like the right place for a suspended cop to go. OGs call getting suspended days on the beach. Some of them don't seem to mind suspensions that much. The attitude is, I could use the break. OGs have more than one locker in the locker room. Some OGs have 4, this in a station where lockers come at a premium, where recruits are actually changing clothes in the hallway because there is nowhere else for them to go. Multiple lockers equal status. And the sign on your locker that the hapless facilities manager posts saying, "Please identify yourself or this lock will be cut off and the contents removed," that sign represents an empty threat because nobody messes with an OG's locker. KMA, everyone. KMA. Some OGs will go to court in uniform without bothering to strap on their holster, opting instead to tuck their gun in their often generous belt line. You want to tell them, "You, my friend, have just significantly increased the odds of shooting yourself in the scrotum." But they are who they are and will do what they do. OG cops tend to leave OG criminals alone. Not because they don't believe old people do wrong, but because OG criminals aren't usually the ones committing violent crimes. Last night's drive-by probably wasn't planned and carried out by the 65-year-old on the corner with a pork pie hat and diabetic socks. OGs know they aren't going to change their criminal namesakes, and vice versa. Conversely, older cops look out for and engage with older citizens who require the kind of light touch that a younger cop might not have the patience for. Like the elderly woman who calls the police to report a prowler, but when the officers show up, doesn't seem interested in what they've found or not found. The real reason for her call is she wants company and knows that if you dial up the police, they have to come. She has coffee and cake already set up. "Please sit down," she says. She wants to chat about her childhood and about her sons who don't visit her anymore. She talks like she's used to no one paying attention to her and answers questions about herself that no one has asked. When the OG rises to leave, she wonders if he could stay a little longer, and he will sit politely with her for as long as he's able, because he understands something about human nature and human kindness, understands something about how painful and crippling loneliness can be. She'll probably call again next week, and he'll come back. Old age is a shipwreck, Charles de Gaulle observed. Maybe he was talking about the old woman at the table with coffee and cake. He might as well have been talking about cops. Back in the day is the OG's preferred way of starting sentences. Got a lippy prisoner? Back in the day, into the dark corner we went, the OG muses, for some behavior modification. With the prevalence of surveillance cameras and cell phone videos, there aren't as many dark corners as there used to be now, which is good for citizens, criminals, and cops alike. Back in the day, the crooks were still afraid of the police. An OG would battle some guy on PCP and kick him down a stairwell. A few weeks later, he'd see the guy and would actually get an apology. There should be an "oh damn" moment when thugs see the law coming, the OG will postulate. When you come out of your car, they should want to go inside. They aren't scared enough. They need to be scared. Back in the day, some OGs would bust up a teen party and put all the confiscated alcohol in their car trunks. Funny thing, though, this booze never made it into evidence, but Swing Shift sure had a blowout after-party that night. In this enlightened era, if you get in a job-related shooting, you attend department-mandated counseling with a shrink. But a few decades ago, the after-action shoot team was a couple of tough pieces of meat with some notches on their belt who would slap you on the back, and then you'd get drunk for 3 days. No one had heard of post-traumatic stress. Back in the day. Back in the day is exclusive territory. If anyone with fewer than 10 years on ever says it, his fellow officers will roll their eyes, because he hasn't earned the right yet, and it makes him sound like kind of a dork. Old-timers can still throw down if called on, but get by more on wit and guile than brute force. Plus pepper spray. A boatload of pepper spray. At this stage in their career, OGs just want the suspect to get in the car. Just get in the car, man. Who needs the drama? They've gotten in enough fights over their police career. They don't need any more. Just get in the car. Except when the guy doesn't get in the car, the OG has to show he hasn't lost it. Not yet. He has to show he's still relevant, that it is proper and fitting that he wears a police uniform. So the struggle is on. And if he tries his favorite takedown move, the one that has worked so faithfully over the years, and it fails, then out will come the pepper spray, and the whole room's getting lit up. Veteran cops approach retirement in vastly different ways. Some guys stagger toward the finish line, their life made up of used-tos. They used to bike, used to be in a softball league, used to get together with friends. The constant adrenaline spikes and crashes from street duty have taken a toll. They treat their families like suspects. They brood. You worry about them when they're on the job, and maybe even more after they've left. As any good police psychologist will tell you, now that he's retired, a cop has unstructured time and money, and maybe the shield was the only thing that kept him off the bottle. But others reach the final lap with a bit more in the tank, or seemingly unscathed. A few, hale and hearty. Marrying well helps, tethering yourself to someone healthy and true. But regardless of what kind of shape they're in when they get there, every cop has a plan for their last day on the job. Who they're going to tell off, where they're going to eat lunch, what sincere or snarky comment they're going to make on the radio. And then that beautiful day arrives when the department calls with a question about a case or to try to serve you with a subpoena. But you don't answer, because you just turned in your gun and shield. Here it is, Lieutenant. One police career gently used. We're closing down shop over here. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you forever. You're doing other things now. You've got hobbies. Doubles tennis, abalone diving, rebuilding the engine on your Mustang, planting corn in the back 40. Your summer place has a sign above the door that says, Better Times. Whatever the case, you're busy. You are, in fact, busy for the rest of your natural life. This high doesn't last forever. Some OGs missed the job even knowing it left scars. They'll still use the station house gym with the fellas or sign up to be a police auxiliary. It's not unusual for an OG to join another police department to supplement their pension and fill their day. Being a cop is a significant portion of your identity. Some veterans struggle with that. If I'm no longer this, who am I? You're an OG an hour into your shift, and you're already tired. Your lower back sports a bulging disc that feels like the size of a cantaloupe, which isn't helped by 25 years of carrying an extra 25 pounds on your duty belt. You're pretty sure the time it took you to run 1.5 miles in the academy is now the time it takes you to lace on your running shoes. Your to-do list for the weekend has 2 things on it: get bread and colonoscopy. The shifts when you go to work but aren't wholly there are more frequent now. You wonder if the drug dealers on the corner still see you as a threat. Your disenchantment is such you transfer to a new station for a fresh start because someone once told you change is good, but you find it to be the same circus, just different clowns. You have been anesthetized against people's pain because you've seen too many deaths, some of them children. You have adopted a kind of surly stasis, have started to doubt the worthiness of your cause. Harry Bosch says, everybody counts or nobody counts. And there was a time when you believed that, but on your bad days, you're leaning toward the latter. Certain members of the public hate you, and you hate them right back. When you took this job, you actually thought you'd make a difference, and once in a while you did, but not often enough. Then you see some jittery new recruit struggling to perform basic handcuffing or going to court and checking in at the public defender's table instead of the DA's because he can't tell the difference between them. He's doing his best, but his best ain't much. The fact that his shoes are extra shiny and his stomach has not yet begun to creep over his duty belt are about all he's got going in the plus column right now. He doesn't belong here. Not yet. Like some flatlander trying to acclimate to the altitude. He'll probably be fine. He's not who he's going to be. The department will survive his incompetence. After all, you were him once, and it survived yours. But you don't want to be him anymore. He's got 30 years of this left. You can count your remaining years on one hand. So you watch him, and you are glad you are no longer young.
And that was Chapter 19, OGs, from Policecraft by Adam Plantinga, read by Steve Marvel. Back in a minute. Thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.